Hi, I'm Julia Lefevre, and around here we chat about rewiring your brain to lead with clarity, confidence, and impact. Tired of all the old leadership advice? You're in the right place. Let's get started. Today's guest, Carl Bowden, is a living example of what it means to follow purpose, to pivot with integrity, and to lead from values instead of ego. In this episode, Carl shares the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, what it really takes to say yes to the next call, and why community and nature are two of his greatest leadership teachers. If you have ever wrestled with change, even the kind you chose, this conversation will remind you you can answer the call, take a new path, and still stay true to your mission. So, Carl, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me, Julia, and excited to talk leadership.
Absolutely. So, you've just made a big shift from your startup company to a more of a, what would you say, like joining a team and being able to do the same things, but this time surrounded with a lot of others. So, what's that been like? How's it going?
Yeah, so it really has been a big shift, but in a way, it's stayed the same. So I'm still doing the exact same things I was doing with Exemplify Leadership. Now I'm just doing it with a bigger company called AGH. So that's Allen Gibbs and Hulick. So it's a
Okay.
larger CPA and accounting firm. I'm in the organizational development department. Still doing a lot of leadership coaching, group facilitation, outdoor leadership retreats, speaking engagements, everything I was doing with Exemplify, but now I have a larger team by my side.
That's awesome. Well, before we get into too much of what's happening now, where did this passion for leadership begin?
That is a loaded question. And it's a long one. It's always hard to kind of figure out where it all started. But I think it's truly a part of me and who I am. I love people. I love just helping people become the best version of themselves in any way that they can by asking a lot of deep questions and just holding them accountable and walking with them on their journey. But for me, I think it really hit me when I read a John Maxwell book. If you've ever heard of John Maxwell, he's written about 90 leadership books, so he is very well versed in leadership. I read one of his books in college at K State, and it was the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. Now, I read that book and I was just hooked. I read it about 4 to 5 times back to back to back and just tried to apply each one of those qualities every single day and then practice that in in the community, on campus, to just become a better leader that people would want to follow. So that's when it really hit me. How
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what those things were. Give us a taste of, what were some of those habits and practices that you were trying to ingrain in who you were?
Yeah, definitely. So one would be vision. I had to figure out, okay, what do I actually want? Where am I going? Sometimes we have to lay out the adventure where we're going or the mountain that we're trying to climb in order for us to lead well. We have to know our purpose, our why, our reason for doing things. Now that's a trait that can often get overlooked a lot in leadership. We just kind of get into the weeds and just start going, 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 but it might not be the right path that we want to go down.
I love that your journey to leadership started with you. It wasn't so much what you were bringing to the world around you. It was, where am I going? What is my purpose? You know, what clarity do I need moving forward to be able to move into this place where I can impact others?
That's a really big point too. It one quote that came to mind that I just kind of brought about through doing leadership in the community is that leadership starts with us, but it ends with others. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
We have to live the example. We have to we have to put out what we want to get out in people. So a lot of our energy, maybe our example, what we do really, really matters. It starts with us. But the end goal has to be about others. That's the whole point of leadership. It's not about me. It's about serving other people. So this is something that I think a lot of leaders are challenged with today. They get into
Yeah.
leadership because of themselves. They want that fancy title. They want that big salary. Um, they they don't have a mission, a why that is focused on a greater calling, a greater purpose. So for me, I think honestly, everything stems from my faith in wanting to serve God and then serve others. For me, that's where it comes from. That might not be the
Yeah.
case for everyone, but that's why everyone has to ask themselves those questions to figure out what that is. So, just below my faith is just helping people become the best version of themselves. So, that serving others part. Uh, but another thing where the outdoor leadership retreats come into play is my passion for the outdoors. Uh, I guess God's creation too. So, it all stems from my faith, but I think the best part about leadership coaching and just walking along the adventure with people is having people see that light bulb go off in their minds and their hearts, and then seeing them make positive change going forward. That's where I think the real reward is.
Absolutely. You make a really good point that leadership starts with me, but it ends with others. And then the reward is getting to see others grow. And how can you lead someone that you haven't first adventured into for yourself? And so I think you're right. There, it's a tension that I think a lot of leaders struggle with today, that they may even get into it for all the right reasons, and they get focused on themselves, but sometimes I think it's hard to shift the focus then outward. We get stuck on me, and one of the things that I know I experienced early on is that my own insecurities kept me looking at me, and I thought I had good motives. So I'm trying to serve other people. And yet I didn't realize that my serving them even turned into almost a codependent stance of leadership where I need them to need me. And so that quickly gets turned upside down and can really kind of sabotage the process. So I'm just curious, what are some ways that you have um, just had to wrestle with the difficulty of leading yourself while leading others?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that comes to mind is that I had to put myself as a priority in that I have to take care of myself. If I'm not taking care of myself, I can't take care of others. So, what am I doing to take care of myself? There's multiple things I could be doing. I could be getting enough sleep. Maybe I'm going for a walk. Maybe I'm adventuring in the outdoors. Maybe I'm listening to music. Uh, maybe I'm just with friends, having a good time, being with people that I love. I think that is absolutely key in order to kind of let go of the self when we are with others. So when we're away from others, that's when we should always be taking care of ourselves. But when we're with others, we need to be fully focused, fully present on them
Yeah.
and what to
Mhm.
accomplish. So, um, that's absolutely key. It's just taking care of yourself as a leader in order to lead others well.
So important. So let's go back to, I mean, you were in the middle of telling us, this is the words of John Maxwell were just kind of gripping me and casting this vision for something bigger than myself. And I wanted to figure out what that was. So pick up from there. And how did having a vision help you to know, what was the next step for you?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Tomorrow I'm giving a talk on mentorship, and John Maxwell has been one of the biggest mentors in my life. Even though he hasn't been like physically present right in front of me, I've learned so much from him, and he's really helped me map out my leadership adventure and where I'm going. So, once I stumbled upon that book, The 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader, I just kept on studying leadership, and I tried to get everything I tried to get my mind around everything I could with leadership. I tried to practice leadership. So like at K-State, I was part of student government. I led the Wildlife Society. I was pursuing a conservation degree at the time. And then after college, I got into the field of conservation, and I worked for Kansas Wildlife and Parks. I was an environmental specialist for the Golf Course Superintendents Association. A lot of different things there, but I actually led a leadership award with golf course superintendents as well, and just working with golf courses all across the world to make sure uh, they're managing their land the best that they possibly can in order to lead a positive impact on the environment. So, had those experiences, and then I went to the Land Institute in Salina, my hometown, and I was in charge of more community building and event planning, and just being with people, getting them more connected with the land and how we can kind of share the importance of natural resources in our world today. So at that time, I had been working for uh, the Land Institute for about 3 years, and then COVID hit. Now, this was a very trivial time. It was a roller coaster. We didn't really know what to do. There was no community building. Everyone was just trying to figure it all out. Now, at that time, since I was doing community building, more event planning, environmental education type stuff, I was let go. So that we weren't doing any of that at the Land Institute. So this was a time where I was kind of lost for a bit. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I've been in conservation 5, 6 years. I was let go from this job. I still had two months to figure out like, okay, what's next? Now I thought to myself, I had been studying leadership for the past 10 years or so. I had been certified with the Maxwell leadership team to coach, train, and speak, and basically start my own business. And that's when I realized, this is probably a bigger passion of mine than conservation, than the outdoor. It's like, what if I step into that? So that's what I did. That's when I decided decided to kind of jump off the cliff and build my wings on the way up and build that business. So uh, that business was Exemplify Leadership. I ran it for about 4.5 years, and then just recently made the transition to AGH.
Wow. And there's nothing like challenging your own leadership acumen than starting something that you have to run. Like, I mean, being an entrepreneur is all consuming. And so I'm curious what lessons you learned in that process. How did running your own company sharpen your leadership?
In so many different ways. It's
I know. How much time do we have?
yeah, we could be talking for days. Every day is a lesson,
Yeah.
And I think the important thing in order to become really good at business or to practice your leadership is just keep going. Have that persistence, that grit, uh, to keep going through the tough times. This was the biggest emotional roller coaster of my life. Yeah, I had really high highs and really low lows. There were times where I was making more money than I ever thought possible. But then there are times where I didn't have any money and I couldn't pay my bills. I couldn't I couldn't pay my rent. I I felt isolated because of that lack of money. I felt like I couldn't go out and just be with my friends, my family, and that was a very tough time at times. But then at other
Absolutely.
times, it was just you're on top of the world. But
Yeah.
I think when you are put in a place where you're just almost forced to figure it out, you figure things out. You find a way. And
Yeah.
I think when you're a part of something else, like something like a bigger company, sometimes you don't always have that mindset because you have other people to lean on, which is great. I love that. Uh, but when you're starting a business by yourself and it's just you at the start, you have to find a way. Um, so that's one of the biggest lessons right there is just problem solving and finding a solution to those problems.
Wired to Lead is really trying to shine a light on the role that our experiences play in strengthening our capacities for leadership. And so many of us had certain experiences early on that led us to some success in leadership. And I just, as I hear you talk about this experience of starting your own company, that this was something that became the proof that, okay, now I'm going to do it for real. There's nowhere to hide. And I would imagine that through the highs and the lows, that the processes, the experiences that you had gave you an opportunity to practice all of the things that you had learned cognitively through all of your reading, all of your studying, but that the experience of leading was able, it just gave you kind of the space to practice and probably fail sometimes and succeed.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. There were a lot of times in college where I started to really lean into those leadership roles and learn um, about myself as a leader, and then take those lessons into building a business, applying that and figuring out, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And how do I interact with people that either adds to them or subtracts from them? Because there are times where maybe I thought I like communicated something clearly to someone and it didn't come across. Or maybe I didn't have all the pieces in place in order for someone to be successful. Um, I think
Yeah.
earliest times I realized a gift for leadership and just getting the best out of people. I was president of the Wildlife Society, leading an exec team of about 8 people. And uh, one thing that we didn't do well in prior years was we didn't delegate. We, we, we just had the president basically lead the entire organization. They were in control of everything. They weren't letting go of things. And like there was just a funnel where there was a log jam and we couldn't get everything through the hole there. So
Yeah.
that was one thing I really emphasized during that time is just delegate and just let go, let go, so I can let others do what they need to do. So that's one of the biggest lessons I think in leadership that anyone could take away is just letting go.
I agree. And I think it's one of the most difficult parts because there is a sense of ownership. And yet, as you've said, leadership starts with us, but it ends with others. And if we're not including others in even the process of leadership, then we're missing the boat completely. So I love that example.
Yeah, we can't do it alone. We have to have other people bias. I was sitting down with a leader here in Wichita. I think it was about a year ago. John Rolfe with Thrive Restaurant Group, and we were having lunch. And John, he leads a company of about 8,000 employees or so, and I think close to 100 different franchised restaurants. So some of those are like Applebee's, Qdoba, Homegrown, Carlos O'Kelly's. There's a few others in there as well. And there's just so many things happening. And I asked John, I was like, John, how do you manage all this? Like this is a lot to handle. And he said something very simple. He said, I just let go. I let go, let other people um, do the work. This is such a hard part about leadership, though, because we want to be in control. And this goes to human nature, I think. We all want to be in control because I think there's some safety and security in that. But I think the real magic starts to happen when we let go and then we start multiplying that change that we're seeking to make in the world.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. So you said that you are speaking tomorrow, which by the time this airs, it will have been a couple of months ago, but doing a talk on mentorship. And so give us some insight in how do you balance the teeter totter of when, if you're mentoring someone or you're leading someone, how do you equip them and then let go? And what is the rhythm of that? How have you found success in that kind of that back and forth, finding that balance?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on who you're with. If you're mentoring someone and they don't really know too much about what you're trying to lead them in, I think it's going to require a lot more proximity to that person.
Mm,
So the analogy I like to give is like a dog on a leash. I don't know if this is the right analogy, but like usually when there is a lot of ignorance around a topic, a task, or whatever that is, it's going to require a little bit more proximity and a little bit more direction. That's more of a directive style of leadership. Now, once that person, that mentee, that subordinate, whatever, becomes a little bit more familiar with that task or that environment, then we kind of go into a coaching role, either as a mentor or a leader. That's when we start asking questions to get their mind thinking. They're starting to lead instead of just following direction. They're starting to lead by critically thinking through some of these challenges that they're facing. Now, once they become even more familiar, then just let go even more. We give them more distance, and that would be more of a supportive type of role. And then eventually we get to an encouraging type of role. So we've almost entirely let go, and we just encourage them, like, keep doing what you're doing. And I think that is a very hard balance to figure out. One of the key things in leadership is to start where people are. That is the essence of leadership. Start where they are and have empathy for where they are, and then figure out, okay, what do they want to accomplish? Where are they at? And then walk with them on the journey, guide them on the journey, get them thinking of, okay, what's next? And then finally, the picture becomes clear. for the path becomes clear as they're trekking up this mountain. And then all of a sudden, they're on their own. They're off and running. So, do we do this perfectly as leaders? No, no one does.
Shoot.
Yeah. And that's why leadership is so hard, is because every single person is different. Every situation is different. So,
Right.
in order to lead well, again, it goes back to we need to start where people are.
And I even hear you saying help them to recognize where they are as well as where they want to go. Being able to cultivate and help them to create vision for themselves, and then you get to be the one to walk that with them. But ultimately, it's almost this uncovering process of helping them to uncover where their roadmap for their leadership journey.
Exactly. And that's exactly what both you and I do, Julia, is that
It is.
we give clarity and we provide self-awareness for the people that we work with. So, it's about asking those really deep questions to kind of get through the clutter, and then push that aside to create a clear path forward. And then they take the next step. We take that step with them and just keep on uncovering some of those challenges in the way.
I love that. You're a conservation guy and you do outdoor retreats. So I think it's so interesting that really that is kind of this perfect culmination of two of your passions, the outdoors, land, nature, connecting people to it in the context of also leadership lessons. So, how did that all come to be, and what do you love about that that avenue of leadership development?
Yeah. So, going back to where I lost my job, I was about to partner with someone before I had even started a business. And this coach was in Salina. And she asked me before we partnered together, she asked me, "What's holding you back from starting your own business?" I was like, "Well, probably myself. I'm scared. I've never done anything like that before, you know?" So she's like, "Carl, you have a really amazing opportunity to provide a really unique experience with both your passions of the outdoors and leadership." She's like, "You can do outdoor leadership retreats with companies and their teams and help them gain more clarity, connection, community, culture." And that's when I realized I just need to take the next step. I need to go for it because I knew those things were the biggest passions in my life. I knew I was good at both of those things.
Yeah.
I just needed to be brave, step into that fear, and take action. So that's what I did. So it was a whole process, but it's about noticing the signs and having the right conversations to get through all of that and know the next path.
So, Carl, I love that you just were able to admit to yourself that the thing that was holding you back from what's turned into a, a life giving career was fear. And one of the things that I really help leaders to understand is the value of being able to connect with safe people and to be able to just say what is without judgment. And so the fact that you were able to share with your coach, I think I'm scared, knowing that she wasn't going to blame you, she wasn't going to judge you for it. And then that's all it took. I mean, all that was part of what helped give you the courage and the insight to just take that next right step.
Yeah, that's a big point too. I read the book, The Leadership Challenge, like
Mm,
Posner, and the number one leadership quality that most people want to see in their leaders is honesty.
mm,
The
wow.
majority of the people that took a survey that has been done for 40 plus years to thousands of different people, the number one quality was honesty. When I am honest with myself, I can I can deal with the reality and break through some of these challenges. If I'm not honest with myself, I can't get through those challenges, and I'm at a standstill. And I think the same thing goes with the people that we communicate with, people that we connect with. If we aren't honest with them, we're at a standstill. We can't get deeper in that relationship. So, in everything that I do, I just try to be honest and authentic as possible,
Mm.
just real, because I'm not going to grow, I'm not going to learn if I'm not being honest with myself.
So I think a lot of leaders feel way too scared to be honest about negative things like that. They would be scared that they would be seen as weak or not a capable leader. And so it's interesting to me that most leaders want honesty, and yet I see a lot where they struggle to be as honest as what they are wanting. So how have you seen that in leadership? And what is your, I guess, your coaching for that? How do you help leaders to understand the value of being honest with themselves and with others, even when it feels vulnerable?
Yeah, I think you said the key word right there is vulnerability. Like when we have vulnerability with others, it doesn't steer people away. If anything, it draws people near,
It
draws
does.
people closer. Uh, because when we share something that might be insecure in ourselves,
Yeah.
but then someone else is going through that same thing, then that person's like, hey, that leader's just like me. They're not so different from me after all. And this is a really big problem in leadership is that we put leaders on this pedestal.
Yeah.
And what leaders need to do is get off the pedestal, get on the ground floor with their people, and just
Yeah.
share real things that they're going through so they can relate, they can connect, they can build community. A lot of leadership is about building community.
I am so glad you said that because you've said it kind of along the way. I'm good at conservation and I'm good at bringing people together and building community. What, so, well, before I ask the question, I'll just preface it by saying what we're learning about our brain is that we need community. We need connections that are safe so that we can be vulnerable, so that we can just be people first. And what is your just tell us about your experience with cultivating community on teams? How have you seen that help an organization run better?
Yeah. Um, I think one of the main things I try to do is just be myself, not be
Mm,
like super professional about things, even though I'm in a suit right now. But like, uh, I just try to talk about life with people
mm,
and just do life with each other and just share like, hey, how's it going? How was your day? What'd you do over the weekend? Um,
mm,
what are some of their hobbies and stuff? Like if I show interest in others, I will then become interesting.
it's true.
That's one of the best ways to, I think, just lead is just show interest to others. So in building teams, how can we show interest in each other?
Mm,
How can we continually communicate not only in quality but frequency.
Mm,
So we're all on the same page. We know each other professionally and personally.
mm,
So the hard part about this is that it takes time.
yeah.
You can't just instantly build community or connection or culture. It has to be built one step after the next.
Hmm.
So, in order to build a really rock star team, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take months, years, maybe even decades.
Yeah,
You just never know, and it kind of depends what you're working towards there too. But
sure.
um, one thing I try to do is just be on the right communication
Mm,
wavelength, but
yeah.
also just be with people.
It's the reality of what presence does for our brains. It makes our brains happy. And I talk about this all the time, but I'll get my little brain model up here. This limbic system in here, the subconscious, it's kind of like the gas tank for our brain. The smartest part of your brain is up here, but until your relational needs are met, until this gas tank is filled, the smart part of your brain doesn't get much energy because most of our brain energy is going to answering these questions in here. And so, if as a leader, you can cultivate cultures, you can cultivate connections that answer the questions that every person who's there is asking, which are, do I belong and do I matter? If you can answer those for somebody, then you're fast tracking their ability to get to the smart part of their brain. So even though it takes time, it will pay off exponentially because it will save time in the long run. So I love that there's a commitment to being present with people. And as you were talking, I even thought to creating spaces where they feel safe to be honest about themselves with you and so on.
Yeah, that's so true. Have you heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Oh yeah.
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 So I refer to that model pretty often.
Yeah.
And uh, leadership or self actualization is actually at the top of that pyramid.
Very tough. Yep.
And it's very hard for people to focus on that if they don't have all the prior needs met. So those needs might be safety, security, food, shelter, clothing, community, that belonging
Mhm.
piece. Um, so that's really important for all of us to have in order to really think on the higher level visioning, the strategy, the big picture type leadership thoughts in order to push that goal forward in whatever we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. So, Carl, we're almost out of time. But I don't want to end without just talking about how you have just undergone a massive change, a big pivot. And when you announced this change, you said the path has changed, but the mission stays the same. So, can you just take us into that moment when you realized that it was time for a shift and how you discerned that this role was the next right step for you?
Yeah, great question. And I reflected on that very hard because I had been dedicating 4.5 years of my life to building a business, something that was solely created just from my experience and what I was working towards.
Yeah.
Um, so it was really hard, but I was at a very difficult moment. A lot of things happening personally and professionally where something needed to change.
Mm,
And I had a lot of things personally happen, such as like my grandma had passed away. My aunt
mm,
went to the hospital the same day my grandma passed away.
mm,
And then I, my parents put down two of our family dogs,
mm,
and we had some things stolen from our family farm.
mm,
The girlfriend I was with we had broken up. So
Mm.
there's so many different things that were happening, and then on top of all that, I didn't have hardly any money. I
Yeah.
couldn't go much further, uh,
Yeah.
and you could try to make up certain scenarios of why that was the case, but there was a lot of things I probably wasn't doing correctly in order
Yeah.
to just go that extra extra mile in business. But there
Yeah.
could have been a lot of environmental factors too. It's hard to say, but I was actually presented with a really awesome opportunity through
Mm.
networking in Wichita.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I think I've done very well is just make the right type of connections
Mm.
in a business. So I went to a mergers and acquisitions happy hour led by
Oh.
Alyssa McGinn here in town with Info Fluency. And the person that was facilitating that first meeting was Daniel White. So Daniel, he is my supervisor now. Uh,
Okay.
but he was just kind of leading the group to figure out, okay, how do we get this mergers and acquisitions community started here in Wichita?
Mm.
So I got to see him facilitate that first time, and then at the
Mm.
end of that facilitation, I went up, I introduced myself. I'm like, hey, my name is Carl Bowden with Exemplify Leadership. I'm a leadership coach here in town. Gave him my business card. I was like, I love to have coffee with you. So after that meeting, I reached out and I was like, hey, I office at the Commerce Club. I would love to uh, get that coffee with you. And it took, I feel like a couple months really to finally get the coffee. And then we have a conversation about coaching, consulting, facilitating. And in the midst of that conversation,
Mm.
he asked me, have you ever thought about working for AGH? And at the time, I was like, well, not really. But tell me more.
Yeah.
I was like, I would love to learn more about it. And it sounded like everything that they were doing, what I was doing with examples,
Mm.
and the culture, the values all seemed to line up just perfectly. Um, and he's like, well, let me take this back to the CEO and figure out, okay, uh, what can we do here? How can we get you on board?
Yeah.
So I met with Daniel and then Carrie, who co leads the organizational development department.
Okay.
And we just talked about details of the job. Um, Again, everything seemed to line up. And then they
Mm.
proceed to schedule a meeting with the CEO, had the meeting with the CEO. Again, the values were in line, really connected with the CEO, Paul Allen, and
Mm.
then just kept having discussions. And then all of a sudden, I'm working at AGH. So,
Mm.
how did I know this was the right decision? Well, it was paying a lot more money, so that's one thing. Uh,
Yeah.
Number two, it was aligned with my values,
Mm-hmm.
and three, it was basically continuing the business with just more stability, more security, and
Yeah.
that's something I had been looking for a while.
Mm.
Um, However, if I didn't start this business, I would not have gotten this position.
No.
And if I wasn't out in the community with people, I wouldn't have gotten this position.
Yeah.
What's great about this position is that it's in my mind, I feel like in a way it's kind of less work because I'm not running the whole business. Still,
Right.
I'm still doing a lot. I'm still staying very,
Mm-hmm.
very busy, but I'm not running the whole business. I'm more focused. I am
Mm.
more honed in on what really matters. And then I also have a team behind me too. So
Yeah.
in all of those things, knowing my higher purpose, which is serving other people,
Mm.
helping them become the best version of themselves, I could accomplish a lot more with a team by me and being more focused.
Absolutely.
So it was a pretty clear decision that this was the
Mhm.
next right step. And I am extremely thankful to be working for AGH, to have the
Mhm.
team, to have the support, um, and to just still kind of stay in line with my mission, what I'm working towards, and to just make the community a better place.
This is such a fitting story for the end of this because we just circled right back to way back when you were entering into leadership and thinking, what is my vision? Where do I want to go? And how that has remained steady through all the ups and downs. And now it kind of guided you to the next right step for you. And so, what a beautiful, it kind of gives me goosebumps to think. And it highlights, underscores the importance of knowing your vision, creating it, and then helping others to do the same, because it will be a guiding force for the rest of their leadership journey.
Absolutely, yeah. It's amazing where life takes you. I think it's important to just understand some of the signs along the adventure,
Yeah.
and oftentimes we can just walk on by and just completely disregard that sign. It's
Yeah.
important to take the time to reflect, be with other people that kind of put a mirror in front of you to figure out the path that you're on, uh, to help guide you to that next step, but then still remain to who you are.
Absolutely. Well, Carl, thank you so much for coming on the show today and just sharing your journey with us. My hope is that our listeners will just take away another example of the reality that leadership is not all straight up. It's not a straight journey. It's up and down. But if you have a vision to lead you and guide you, uh, it will take you where you want to go. So thank you so much for being here, and we will keep in touch.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Julia. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. We will see you next time. Thanks for listening to Wired to Lead. If this helped you lead with more clarity today, hit follow in your app so you never miss an episode, and leave a short review in Apple Podcasts. 2 sentences is perfect, and it helps leaders like you to find us. If you're a leader who would like to explore opportunities for workshops or coaching with Brave Restoration, please reach out to our website at www.braverestoration.org. We would love to hear from you. See you next time.